Hey everyone, and welcome to Boston Autoblog. It's not too often in the automotive industry where you come across a car that makes you reconsider and rethink all preconceived notions, not only about a particular brand, but also a segment as well. Now, the Kia Stinger has been around for about 3 years in terms of model year, so it came out around 2018. And in that time, we have seen Kia change who they are. They're fun, they're exciting, at times they're unpredictable, and also they're really leaning more towards the luxury side as well, like we're seeing with the Kia Telluride. Now, almost 2 years ago to the day, I test drove the Kia Stinger on the track. And this was when Kia was holding events all across the country, and you could autocross the Stinger against its competition. And I have to say, in my very 2 to 3 short laps that I got to experience behind the wheel of this car, I fell in love. Now, they had given us a full walk around, also product demonstration, and I knew that for the first time in Kia's history, they had a car that was going to appeal to someone like me, a car enthusiast, but also, I think, appeal to a lot of people who are looking for a very fun daily driver and really give the Germans a run for their money. Now, it goes without saying that the Kia Stinger is a unique car, and the reason why I say that is because it's designed by a man who used to work for Audi, and we're going to start seeing some of those Audi design cues once you check out the interior, but also it's engineered by a man who used to work for the BMW M division. So it has German blood, it has German DNA, and well, this Stinger right here is also slightly modified. So it has parts from Stillen, so you have a Stillen catback exhaust and air intake, and this Stinger is putting out around 400 horsepower. So in this video, we're going to go over everything about this car and see exactly why it might be a really fun car for you. Now, before I get in this review, I'd like to thank Herb Chambers Kia of Burlington in Burlington, Massachusetts for allowing me to do this review. Their link will be in the description below so you can check out their extensive Kia inventory. And so, without wasting any further time, let's get right in this review. Over the last handful of years, we've witnessed the emergence of the Kia brand, not only as a legitimate competitor to Japanese manufacturers, but also entering new markets that for a long time were European-dominated segments. The Stinger GT is an anomaly in a very predictable and crossover-dominated automotive world, but in its few years of existence, this sportback has already become an icon thanks to the backstory of how Kia created this car. Designed in Frankfurt by a man who once worked for the Volkswagen Group as the design director, and most famous for crafting the Audi TT, and engineered by a guy who was at one time the vice president of engineering for the BMW M division, the Kia Stinger GT is without a doubt the most capable vehicle we've seen to come out of South Korea when it comes to design and performance. In fact, one could argue this car is more German than Korean. But more importantly, it deviates away from non-European competitors, as everything from the interior, exterior, and the engine under the hood truly sets the Stinger apart from any Japanese or American four-door car. Pricing also allows the Stinger to compete in numerous subsegments, as consumers could cross-shop the GT with the Subaru WRX STI or even the Audi A5 Sportback, thanks to a base price of $40,000. And on the higher end of the spectrum, like the GT2 we have today, You could then find yourself comparing it to a BMW 4 Series Grand Coupe and other European sedans from $50,000 to $60,000. A striking and sporty front fascia, which has been the inspiration for most new Kia models, draws your attention almost immediately. Receiving admiration from both car enthusiasts and buyers is that the Stinger brings a unique design and road presence that can't be compared to its rivals, especially with tinted chrome-like accents you'll find throughout the front portion of the car, whereas competitors would have gone with a gloss black look. You'll get full LED dynamic headlights and low beam assist with a GT2 trim to make driving at night much safer. Moving over to the side profile, the Stinger GT is sitting on 19-inch alloy wheels and Brembo brakes, which gives the car more than enough braking power on city streets. Active side air vents will keep those brakes cool, while also adding a nice aesthetic look. And on the GT2, you'll get power folding side mirrors with turn signal indicators for added convenience when parking. Coming around back, what's most notable is the quad exhaust tips and gloss black rear diffuser, which just gives the Stinger a great look from the rear. You'll get full LED taillights, but the eye-catching design element is the Sportback design that provides the Stinger with a sporty yet classy upscale look. For performance, the Stinger GT is powered by a 3.3-liter twin-turbo V6 engine that puts out 365 horsepower and 376 pound-feet of torque, and is paired with an 8-speed automatic transmission. However, with the catback exhaust and cold air intake from Stillen, you're going to see around 400 horsepower and 406 pound-feet of torque, giving this car better performance, but also an improved exhaust note that, in my opinion, completely changes the Stinger into being one of the most enjoyable sportbacks in its price range. Thanks to the performance upgrades, the 0 to 60 times may improve to being quicker than 4.4 seconds. But either way, you're going to be pushed back in your seat when accelerating off the line. For drivetrain options, rear-wheel drive comes standard, with all-wheel drive being a $2,200 option, which makes the Stinger a perfect year-round daily driver. For fuel economy, you can expect to receive somewhere close to 19 miles per gallon in the city and 25 miles per gallon on the highway. So as you guys know, I am a big fan of grand touring cars. The bigger the better, but also if I can get that performance as well. And that's exactly what the Kia Stinger is all about. It's a grand touring car. Now with this catback exhaust, I feel as though that I just want to speed all the time. And I know cannot do that being in a dealer car, but with the Stinger that I had test driven 2 years ago on the track, I understood that this car was going to be extremely fun, but I wanted to see how it would do on public roads, and that's why I wanted to do this test drive. Now obviously we are in sport mode because that's the only mode that I would ever drive in. I understand we can go through all different drive modes because comfort will loosen up the steering and the throttle response a bit, but I really love driving, so we're going to stick with sport mode. Now with the 0 to 60 time of around 4.4 seconds, now this might be a little bit faster than that, so we're probably talking 4.1. This car, I would say, is a bit of a sleeper because you would never know even from the exterior that, wow, this car could actually take on some BMWs and Audis in its price range. Now this car is actually really quick. So nice. Now what I didn't remember from my test drive on the autocross event was that when you accelerate, the hood lifts. It's like being in a muscle car. So this car not only is the same thing that you would feel in a German car or a European car, but it has that American muscle-like tendency where once you get on it, the hood just rises and it's an amazing feeling. Steering is very direct, which is really awesome. Now I have to say, with the Kia Stinger GT, you have to go with the Stillen package or find a way to get like a cold air intake on these cars because the turbo spools are just amazing. I also have a head-up display so I know exactly how fast I'm going. I'll tell you, driving this car, especially with the catback exhaust, it's very difficult not to get on it. But just in terms of driving and handling, this car definitely rivals a lot of the German competitors out there, and it definitely rivals a lot of German cars that I've driven in the past. Steering is very tight, and just the way the car rides and handles, it's a really great overall daily driver. Now, in my opinion, I feel as though the Kia Stinger is really underrated. It's often overlooked, and I think it's really unfair because when you start looking at the prices that you're going to be paying for its competitors, whether it's the S5, maybe you could throw in the BMW M340i, you're looking at a price tag around $65,000, which is just insane. At a final price around $56,000, you get everything. You get a car that's really fun to drive, and in my opinion, this is exactly what I'd be looking for. It's a grand tour, and it's just a car that you want to get behind the wheel all the time and stay behind the wheel, which is most important. Now, as I said, the Kia Stinger is really a unique car, but I'd also say rare, because especially in the time that we're living in, especially around 2020, everyone just wants to buy a German car. It's getting kind of redundant at this point. If you want to have, performance, you don't have to go with the German options. And the funny thing is, Kia, you never thought of them as being a competitor to BMW, Mercedes-Benz, or Audi. But as we're seeing in the automotive industry, there is a new option that's going South Korean, like we saw with Genesis and like we're seeing with Kia right now. And again, you don't ever think of Kia being a brand that goes up against these other companies, but interior design and layout, interior comfort, most importantly, is definitely something you don't see in a lot of brands that are outside of Europe. So since we're back on regular streets, we are going to put this car back in comfort mode to see how it handles, how it drives. But I think overall, though, with that catback exhaust, you still hear that sound. So it doesn't really close the valves in any way. So you still have a lot of fun even on regular public roads and off the highway. But what I will point out, though, is that these seats, the bolsterings tighten when you put it in sport mode. So it's like the car is telling you, all right, let's have some fun. I'm ready for it. Let's go. And then when you put it back in comfort mode, the bolsters loosen up because, again, you're not going to be driving on back roads spiritedly, which I just think is actually a really cool design and a really cool feature. We've seen that in Genesis as well. So really forward thinking on the Koreans' part right there. But again, this car is designed and engineered by Germans or people who work for German brands. So it's definitely understandable that you would have that type of technology, or that type of sporty aspects that we just don't see in a lot of brands, particularly companies that go up against Kia traditionally. Now, you could get this car with rear-wheel drive, which would give you a little bit more fun on back roads, or if you're the type of person that likes to have a spirited drive all the time, because the rear end will kick out a bit. I remember that from the autocross event where you're driving, like the rear end starts kicking out, but it's really fun. But this is all-wheel drive, so you can drive this around all year round up here in New England or in colder regions of the country. So that's what makes this car perfect, because you have that daily driving aspect, you have a grand tour, and you don't need a secondary car to get through winter. So my final verdict would be that if you don't want to be like everyone else, and you don't want to buy a BMW or Mercedes-Benz and get caught in the idea of having to add on packages and having to throw on, all these different things that then puts the price tag at like $70,000 or close to it, then I think the Kia Stinger is a great option, especially if you don't have a budget at like $60,000 or above. At $56,000 with the performance packages from Stillen, you get quite a lot. You get a car that sounds good, you get a car that has all the technology features that you want, heated and ventilated seats. I just think that value for the price, but also performance as well, is totally worth it. So after almost 2 years of waiting, I can finally say that this car does drive pretty well on public roads, and it did on the autocross event as well. I think even though Kia was trying to push that car as showing off what it could do against its rivals, when it comes to just a daily driving aspect or just being on public roads in general, this is just a great overall car. As you're going to hear me say probably numerous times in this review, that it's a jack of all trades. So you get that performance, you get the practicality because it's a sportback, and you also have that car that you can take out on a daily basis from going to work or on weekends and having some fun on the weekends. It's just really, to me, one of the great overall cars that really no one ever talks about. Inside, you're greeted by heated and ventilated power-adjustable Nappa leather seats for both the driver and passenger. A welcoming sight for all enthusiasts is the heated and leather-wrapped flat-bottom steering wheel, which feels great in your hands when driving on winding back roads. And for added measure, you'll get paddle shifters to rotate the gears when accelerating. In front of you, between the analog gauges, is a digital display which provides a variety of information, including fuel economy, tire pressure, lap times, a G-force meter, and an onboard compass, to name a few features. Moving over to the infotainment system, you'll get a 7-inch touchscreen with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatibility, along with onboard navigation. With this being a GT2, we also have the upgraded 15-speaker Harman Kardon Quantum Logic Premium audio system. Responsiveness and resolution are good, and if you prefer not to use the touchscreen to navigate through different menus, there will be quick access buttons below. To go along with the rear backup camera with trajectory, you'll have different angles to choose from and front and rear parking sensors to help make parking easier. Below, you'll find the buttons for the dual zone climate control, and to reduce clutter, the 3-level heated and ventilated seat switches will be found on the center console, which gives the interior a cleanly laid out design. Hidden, a wireless phone charging pad and USB input will keep your phone out of sight. For the center storage compartment, there's enough room for a smartphone and small items. And rounding out the front seating area, a power moonroof will let in a lot of natural light. Now for passengers in the back, you're going to get a decent amount of legroom, depending on how tall you are. Now I adjusted the seat most of the way back. I wanted to give myself some room where I could access the middle seat and also the driver's side. But what I do want to point out though is that with the Kia Stinger being a sportback design, you do sacrifice some rear headroom. So if you have people back here that are around 6 foot tall and above, they may be a little cramped in terms of headroom, but for people around 5'8", 5'9", they're going to be pretty comfortable back here. Then moving on to the center seat. Now I always felt that with Grand Tours, and that's exactly what the Kia Stinger is, that trying to fit a third person is a bit iffy because the rear hump is very aggressive. Now, I do have some nice placements for my feet, so depending on how wide and big my the passengers back here on either side of me would be, I actually could probably be comfortable back here for a short period of time, but I always feel with Grand Tours that a third person is always a bit iffy. I always say these cars are actually made for just 2 people back here. And then on the driver's side, I have plenty of room. I adjusted the seat to someone of my height, and it's very comfortable back here. It feels like I have a lot more room than in some other cars and even some crossovers that I have reviewed in the past. So this definitely works. I think Grand Tours in general are great cars if you really like driving. If you have a family and you go on road trips all the time, this really is one of the more perfect cars to go with. And rounding out the rear seating area, you do have 2 rear air vents, a dial where essentially this is a third zone climate control where you can blow cold or hot air back here, along with a 12-volt outlet, USB input, also 3-level heated seats for the driver and passenger side, along with a center armrest with 2 cup holders. Now coming around back, you are going to get a power liftgate, and inside you're going to find just around 23 cubic feet of rear cargo. Now, to put that into perspective, that's more room than the Audi A5 and S5 Sportback and the BMW 4 Series Grand Coupe. So this car is actually very practical. It also rivals some smaller crossovers out there, if you can believe it. Now, one of the reasons why I love the Kia Stinger GT is that it's actually a jack of all trades. So it's very practical. It's also very fun to drive. It has that performance that you're looking for. It's also a Grand Tour, so it's a car you want to drive all the time. So it's great for road trips. It also has enough room for groceries and just daily driving purposes in general. So if you are looking for a car and you don't want to go in the crossover direction, Sportbacks are always the best option to go with. It's one of the reasons why I don't see the 4-door sedan actually dying anytime soon if brands go with this design. And then once you're done, just press the button and it will close automatically. Now before I end this review, I want to focus on a few things about the interior that screams Audi to me. And we talked about this in the intro that once you stepped inside, you would see Audi-like design cues. Now of course, Audi has changed with their recent cars, but there's still these German-like design elements inside here that I'm actually really digging, I'm really liking. Now, we're going to start off with the flat bottom steering wheel. Where else can you find one of these? In Volkswagen and Audi products. However, if you're familiar with the Audi brand, you know that once you order the cold weather package, you lose that flat bottom steering wheel. So the heated steering wheel isn't really great for enthusiastic driving. Whereas in the Kia Stinger, I had the heated steering wheel, and I still had that flat bottom steering wheel design, which I love. Makes it a lot better for me as a car enthusiast. And then lastly is the gear shift lever. And the gear shift lever right here just screams Audi to me, but also really has the same function as most German cars. So you can definitely see the BMW-like, inspiration here. Of course, the car is also engineered by a man who worked for the BMW N Division. That's one thing I like about this car, though, is that it doesn't really say Korean brand. It doesn't really say the Kia brand. This is moving in a whole different direction. In fact, it feels a lot more luxurious than what you would expect. So you have that German-like tendencies, you have that German-like design, and I think that's what really speaks to a lot of car enthusiasts, particularly in this segment, who is looking for a grand tour, but also a fun daily driver. Also, I want to point out the ergonomics of the interior. So the button layout is very similar to what we see in Hyundai and Genesis products. You also have very easy to use buttons that are really definitely within arm's reach. So if your hand is on the gear shift lever while you're driving and you want to access your 3-level heated and ventilated seats, you just press the button right here and now you're either warm or cold. So I really like the way this whole setup is. And you also have nice ingenious design here. You have a nice placement for your wireless phone charging pad and a USB input along with a 12-volt outlet. And it just hides perfectly, so it makes the interior look very clean. I also just like the way the interior is just very easy to use. It's very simplistic. And really, it's just a nice, comfortable car to be in at all times. So if you are in the market for a German sports sedan, I highly recommend test driving a Kia Stinger GT because it has German blood. It has German DNA in it. But also, for a end price around $56,000. Now, this one is $56,000 because of the upgrades by Stillen, but you could get a Kia Stinger GT2 around $54,000. You get heated and ventilated seats. You get a heated steering wheel. You also get some extra camera angles as well, like a top view camera. But also you also have a very clean laid out interior. Now, also what I want to point out though is that this car right here is a driver's car, and what I like the most though is that you're not going to draw too much attention. Now, of course, the way the Stinger looks, obviously to a car enthusiast, they're going to look. But on the road, you're not going to draw that much attention, but you have a lot of fun behind the wheel. So if you don't want to be like everyone else who drives a BMW, Audi, or Mercedes-Benz, then the Kia Stinger is really a great option for you. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more. And I'll see you guys next time.